Hello, this is Nathan Stooke. I'm the CEO of Wisper, and thanks so much for joining us for this Wisper University. I know we had to take a couple weeks off with my schedule and everything, but this is what I wish I knew, or if I only knew what some of the things I wish I would have known starting Wisper that I've learned over the 17 years of doing this. And it's some high-level things. Hopefully will help. We're actually going to do part 1 and part 2. So we're going to go over that. And jumping in, as you guys always know, I always like to know a little bit about the speakers. So my kind of interesting nugget for you is that I've been to every state in the United States, set foot in every one of them. I've been to the 4 corners where you can put yourself in all or 4 states at once. I got to go to Alaska. I think it's been 2 Augusts ago now. Well, technically we just in September, so 3 Augusts ago, got to go to a cruise up in Alaska. Just a wonderful state, amazing. I want to go when it's freezing cold and there's a lot of snow on the ground, and my wife thinks I'm crazy, but of course I used to live up in Maine, way on the Canadian border up there, and love that as well. So that's kind of an interesting nugget about me. The other thing is, you define success. I don't ever want people to think, oh, well, I look down on you, or I love talking to people who have small companies, large companies, big companies, because if you define your success, you will always be successful. If you're always trying to chase somebody else, keep up with the Joneses, you'll never be successful. So I would encourage you to define your own success. So now let's kind of get into a little bit of what we're going to be talking about. So part 1, if I only knew, we're going to be talking about the plan, employees, and financials. And then the next part 2, we're going to talk about personal leadership and owning your company. So that's kind of what we're going to talk about today. Again, kind of at a high level. I've got some stories for that, and then throughout this whole thing, if you have questions or anything, please by all means ask away, put them in the chat, and we'll try to get to them, as many of them as we can during the presentation. So the plan, what plan, right? We had no business plan. Well, we did. We had a plan, right? We had a plan, and it was to make a lot of money and make it fast. And it was to provide great service to our customers. And what's interesting, I had a partner when we started, and it was great. His plan was to make a lot of money and make it fast. He already had an established business. He already had things going well for him and in that business. And this was a side gig for him, whereas this was my only business I had going on. And I also had a desire to provide great customer service, long-term plans, long-term decisions for those customers. So in essence, we really didn't have a plan. We had no business plan written down. We had no Excel spreadsheet. We didn't even have a back of a napkin. Right, we just were talking about what we needed and what we're going to do, and everybody needs internet. That's great. We were back in 2003, which is before everybody needed internet, but we thought everybody needed internet. And if we had done up our business plan, there's a distinct possibility we would have come to the bottom of the numbers and been like, there's no way I'm going to start a Wisp. It's too hard to go up against the big guys. It's too hard to find the right equipment and what we need to do. So maybe not having a business plan wasn't a bad thing, but I would encourage you, if you're either been in business for 20 years or been in business for 2 days or not even in business yet, you need a 2-pager, a 3-pager in writing as to what your plans are, right? So what is your plan? What are you doing? What's your goal? Where you're providing internet to the rural markets, or you're providing internet to the urban markets, or what are you doing? Because when you write that down, there's something about writing things down that really allows you to solidify what you're doing. And you can always pivot, right? You can change and say, oh, we're not doing that anymore. But for me, we didn't write it down at first, and because of my dyslexia, I'm not big on writing, but I could see where it would have helped us have that 2-pager that just talks about what we're doing. We could be on the same page as partners, and we could then move forward with the business and help make decisions. Fast forward to now, I have a 50-page business plan, but it's really more of a plan to get financing. I give it to investors, and I give it to banks and everything, and that plan is way more in depth. But that's not something that you need. I think a 2-pager for you personally, because I have the 2-pager as well. and I can refer back to that, and it sets my core focus and my foundation of what I want the company to be, and where we're trying to go at a high level. So I think that's real important, that you still spend the time, even though you may not need it to get into business. The other one is to understand here is partnerships are hard to make work. I was very fortunate. I was able to buy my partner out many years ago. We still talk. We still have remained friends. But I was able to buy him out. But I know so many partnerships that haven't been that way, right? That it's hard when everybody's singing Kumbaya and it's amazing and we're going to light the world on fire. That's when you need to put into place a buy-sell agreement. And that buy-sell agreement is what how are you going to break up, right? How I'm going to sell to you, you're going to sell to me, or how are we going to value the company, or what are we going to do? So that way, when you put all that together, when you're all singing Kumbaya, then it's easier when tensions are high, emotions are high, and things aren't going well. It's easier to break up when you have those in agreement, that agreement in place. And you can look up online what a buy-sell agreement is, talk to your lawyers about doing that. But I would highly recommend having a buy-sell agreement, because it just sets everything up for more success. What I've seen with a lot of partnerships is one partner brings what they said they were going to bring to the table, whether it be time or knowledge or contacts. And then the other partner doesn't bring to the table what they said they were going to, whether it be time or knowledge or finance. And then you have unequally yoked, and then it's hard to keep moving forward. So when you do put everything together in a buy-sell agreement, it just makes it a lot easier. And I would highly recommend doing that when you're looking at kind of your plan and what do I have to do and what should I do and what do I not have to do starting a business. So the next one is kind of employees, right? So I used to think everybody thought the way I did. I'm an owner. I'm a founder. When I worked for other companies, I worked as if I was the owner. I didn't know that there was any different. When something needed to be done, I did it. When I saw an opportunity to improve something, I tried to improve it. When I worked on something and it didn't go the way we expected it to, I took ownership and said, I didn't do that right. Let me change this or something. So I thought everybody thought that way. Even when I was a lifeguard, even when I worked at a programming company and a consulting company, I didn't realize that not everybody kind of thinks that way. And they also didn't realize that not everybody was a visionary. I was able to see out a little bit into the future, right? I don't have a crystal ball, but I saw things coming, like the need of the internet and that pay TV was going to be dead as we know it, and those type of things. But my employees didn't always see those, and it was my job as a visionary to guide my employees to that vision. And I had to be okay with the fact that they didn't think or act the way I did. And it's not that it's good or bad or wrong or I'm better than anybody else. It's the way it is. So I then had to work with that, and I had to change some of my approach as to how I was going to understand. And when I ask them, do you understand something? And they bobblehead yes, what they mean is they're too scared to ask me a question, or they think they have it, but they really don't. And I need to then follow up and just make sure that I've trained them properly to be able to go on. Whereas if I didn't understand something and somebody asked me if I did, I would tell them, no, I don't understand. Can you go over one more time with me, even if it's the 10th time I've asked? So it's just a little bit different in the way we had to do. And that really helped me when I started dealing with a lot more employees. I also want to build a relationship with your employees. I know there's the thing, well, you can't be friends with your employees. That's fine. Don't hang out with them on the weekend, have different groups. That's fine. But I personally feel that you need to have a relationship with your employees. You need to know, what are they working for? What are their goals? Well, I want to work because I need to put my kids through college. Or, hey, I'm starting out as this brand new career and I'm interested in technology, so I came to work for your company. What's going on in their life, regardless of how well they try to keep their home life from interfering with their work life, especially nowadays that everybody's working from home. That's even harder. Having that relationship, understanding that they're people, they're somebody just like you, and they're not just another number. And I know that's easier to say when you're a small company, because you do have those relationships. You spend time with them. You do that. But as you grow, it gets harder and harder. We have some employees that I've never met in person. I'm horrible with names, so even if I walked past them, I wouldn't know who they are necessarily. And that's something that really kind of pains me, that I like to have a relationship and know what's going on with my employees, the good, the bad, and what are they doing. And I would recommend that you kind of work through that as well. And that's something that as I've grown larger and larger, as Wisper's grown, I have to spend more time on that. Another thing I learned, and I learned this the very hard way, very, very hard way, was hire slow and fire fast. We joke that we're a company of six chances and everything. And, I would be like, oh, this person's understanding, they're getting it, they're getting better. And like the rest of the people in the company are like, no, they're not. And it's like, oh yeah, I see them improving. And what was really happening is they would improve around me, but then not improve when they were out around everybody else. So I tended to give people way more chances than I should have, way more leniency. And there's one thing about being hard and rigid and not being able to bend, but there's another thing about having your values and your core and knowing who you are and what you will and won't put up with. And I know who I am, and I know who my core is, and I know what I will or won't do me personally, but I struggled a little bit with what I would let others get away with. And when you let other people get away with things, then unfortunately your top performers tend to go down to where your bottom performers are, not your bottom performers come up. So I learned that the hard way. We also used to hire really, really fast, right? You would have an opening for 2 people. So you would bring in 4 people and you would hire the first person that didn't stink, or the first 4 people that didn't stink. And then you're like, all right, awesome. And then 2 months later, you're like, why didn't this guy work out? Or why didn't this girl work out? What's the problem here? What's going on? And you realize, oh, okay, I picked the wrong person, right? This person isn't quite right for this job. And now we've slowed down our hiring. We make sure, like we have one employee that works for us now. He originally applied to be a tech support person, and we were talking to him, and he had never had an inside job. He had always been outside, landscaping, appliance moving, you name it. He was outside doing work, and we loved him, but there was no way we thought he was going to be able to sit behind a desk for 8 hours a day and answer phones. And we talked to him about that. And he's like, well, I think I can. I'm not quite sure. I mean, I think I can. And what we picked up on was that he just really wanted to leave his old job to come work for us. So we actually passed on him, but we told him that as soon as we have an outside job open up, we would be very interested in hiring him for that. And sure enough, 6 months later, we had an outside job open. He came in, he loved it. We loved his personality. He fit right into our core values, and it worked really, really well. So that's a little bit on taking the slow approach to hiring to make sure you hire the right people and the people that you need. And then the last part on this is I think, employees are your biggest assets. The picture I have up here is that there's many hats, right? As small business owners and managers, we wear lots of different hats. And I would hire somebody, I'm like, great, I'm hiring you to do this for me. And that way I don't have to do it anymore. And then I'm hiring you. And, as we scaled and we got bigger and bigger, I couldn't take on everything. But I truly, truly believe that your employees are your biggest assets. And if you treat them like assets, they will take you very, very far. If you treat them like another number, and like, unfortunately, a lot of the big companies do, then they don't, they put in the bare minimum, you give them the bare minimum, and you wonder why you need 10 employees when you probably could do the same work with, 3 dedicated employees. So we look at our employees as an asset. We train them. We try to hire the right people first, and then we train them. We invest in them, and we want them to work for us forever, because that's just who we're building those bonds with those employees. So the last section today is financials. I have never been a strong finance person, knowing the numbers. I understood them, and yes, I love looking at reports and numbers, but I never was a strong financial person. And I think this was to our detriment. If I had understood the finances better, I could have made better decisions. And now I'm not saying that I should be a CPA, or you should be a CPA, or you should go take an accounting class. It's not that. It's that, a lot of small businesses are run by your gut. A lot of small businesses are run by, hey, I'll make payroll next week if I can just get a couple more sales. And we were doing a lot of those same things. Whereas if I had had a little bit more of a grasp under my financials, I think we would have been in a better shape today. And now we have monthly P&Ls. We have a staff of accounting people who do amazing work. But early on, when we were smaller, I knew the numbers by my gut and what was working, and it was obviously we've been successful. But again, I think if I'd known them a little bit better, I could have made better decisions. We also need to worry about the temptation of growing too fast. Cash is king. But if you can't, it's one thing to have lots of sales, but if you can't make payroll next week, you might close your doors. And that's what none of us want. None of us want that at all. And the one nice thing about being a WISP is you have recurring revenue. So you can take that revenue and every month, hopefully you're growing your recurring revenue. So every month you earn more and more and more. But that isn't necessarily the case. But some of the times when we got upside down, where we actually had more costs than we had cash coming in, we had to pump the brakes. We had to pause. And then as we added more customers, then we would grow out of our cash deficiency. And it's not a fun way to grow at all. There's a lot more stress on trying to figure out how you're going to pay the bills. One nice thing right now about COVID, a positive, is everybody needs internet, right? So most WISP are growing at record pace, record speeds, and we're just really helping as many people as we can stay connected to the world as they have to work from home or do school from home. But there's a flip side to that. When you grow too fast, then one, your financials, but then also your customer service tend to fail, and then your network tends to fail. So you have to be real careful, or you have to at least acknowledge it's going to happen and then have a plan to get out of it when things slow down. I already mentioned that cash is king, right? So that even profitable companies can still declare bankruptcy if you don't have cash. How much of a reserve do you have? I know many businesses did not have a reserve when COVID hit, and they all of a sudden had to shut down for 3 or 4 weeks, or then it turned into months. And they couldn't weather the storm. Unfortunately, several of my friends have had to just close their business for good right now because they didn't have any reserves and they're not selling anything. And that's disheartening. It's so bad that they had to do that. The other thing is you can't borrow your way out of debt. I've talked to many small business owners that are like, oh yeah, but if I can just get this next loan, I'll refinance this money, and then that'll give me the money I need to grow. Well, you still have to pay that off, right? So you can't borrow your way out of debt, and that's something that is really hard to grasp until you've done the rat race 4 or 5 times, which we have, and you realize, oh, I can't really grow my way out of there without a real plan. And it's really hard to have that plan to grow yourself out of debt if you're growing as fast as you can, adding more customers, because there's a return on investment and it takes 10 months to get the money back, or 24 months, depending on whatever you're doing. And that's something that if you know the numbers better, you'll understand. I've seen many small businesses that continually bid and lose money because they don't realize they're actually losing money, and they can't ever wonder why they can't get ahead on their finances because they don't really know the numbers. And then when they put out a bid for something and do the work, then every time they lose just a little bit of money, or things don't go well and they lose, and then all of a sudden, they're still back in the same boat that they were in when, when cash was tight, even though they continued to grow. So I'll kind of leave you with this quote. This is a quote I've used often that I love, is that you'll be the same person in 5 years as you are today, except for the people you meet and the books you read. And I'm an avid book reader. I read about one a week. I listen to them on my Audible at about 3 times speed. I love listening to books. And it's something interesting. I love listening to books that I've already listened to as well. And you might be like, what? Well, now, yes, I'm not listening to storybooks. I'm listening to business how-to and how to better yourself, self-help and everything. But when you're 3 years removed from the last time you read it, you pick up so many more things. It's like, oh, that's what they meant about that. So it's kind of nice to read books and do it. I know a lot of people take pride in, I haven't read a book since high school or college. Well, that's probably not something that I want to win, right? That's not a challenge that I want to win. I want to be somebody who reads all kinds of books. And here are some of my favorite books that I have. That I really like. These are any Patrick Lencioni book is amazing. He does them in fable version. So when you read a Patrick Lencioni book, he does them where it's a story. And when you read the 5 Temptations of a CEO, I've been literally sitting around my leadership table going, oh yeah, this is how the CEO in that book handled this, or this person is this person, and this person is that person. And it's really helped me remember some of the concepts out of how to raise my game as the leader and be that leader that Wisper needs. John Waxwell as well. He's got some amazing books. I love these two leadership books for sure. These are probably my two favorite ones. And then Gino Wickman and Traction, the EOS, the Entrepreneur's Operating System. We've already talked a little bit about how we use that in our company, but it's a great book as well to help you out. So that's it with part one. We talked about the plan or the lack of a plan and how you should come up with a plan. We talked about employees, about how we kind of think a little differently as a business owner, and how we can use them as assets and treat them as assets as opposed to disposable. I'll just hire somebody else. And we invest in our employees. And then we also talked about the finances, right? The financial side of things. What do you need to know as a business owner? Do you need to be a CPA? No. Do you need to know what the word EBITDA means? Do you need to know what the word CapEx means? Do you need to know all those things? Absolutely, yes. And in fact, some of our other sessions we have coming up here in the coming weeks, we're actually going to dive into some of those finances, and I'll take you through my journey of understanding financials and how I was not very good at it, how I became better at it. And then we'll also bring in Mark, our CFO, and have him talk a little bit about, from his perspective of being equivalent to a CPA and understanding what we need as a business and what that can do. So with that, that's all I have. If anybody has any questions, or they can put them in the chat there, that'd be great. We can go there. Let's see. How long did it take you to come up with a plan? So, I mentioned early on we didn't have one, and it was probably good because our plan was wrong, right? We needed way more cash than we thought, or double the time. But when I started working on our 50-page plan and putting everything together, it was an annual process I did. And my first plan took me probably 6 months to 9 months. Not the 2-pager, right? The 2-pager didn't take me that many. And then now, that first one probably took me, I probably had 30 revisions. I was working with a business advisor, and I told him, listen, I don't want you to write the plan for me. I want you to teach me the financials and teach me how to create this plan so I'm as good at the financials as I am the tech. And unfortunately, I'm really good at the tech. So it was a tall order to help get me that much on the financial side. But yeah, we had a ton of revisions there. And now I update my plan once a year. So typically I work on it between Christmas and New Year's. I've been doing a lot of market research before then and industry research of where we're going. And then I set out, I have a segment on what we're doing and everything. But then I also talk about where I think the industry is going, where I think our threats are. And it's a much longer, more developed plan. And really for me, it's not so much the process, it's not so much the plan that I create as it's the process I go through. And I'll give you an example. In 2010, in doing my plan, I came to the realization that pay subscription TV, cable TV, those things, pay TV model was dead. That it was all going to go over the top, or it was going to go a la carte. You would go directly to Discovery Channel to buy their channels. You would go directly to ESPN to buy theirs. And I firmly believe that, and I started preaching that's what I see is coming. The industry still said it was great, and AT&T bought DirecTV at the height of that and paid top dollar for it. And everybody said, no, this is business as usual. This is amazing. Not a single cable company was talking about a internet-only customer. They still gave you internet for the most part in order to get you to be a TV customer. So fast forward 5 years, 2015, Reed Hastings, the founder of Netflix, is standing up in front of an audience, and he says, pay TV as we know it is dead. It's over. It's all going to be over the top. You're going to go direct to content providers, and you're going to get your kind of like Netflix or whatever. And he got a Wall Street Journal article written about his comments. And I'm like, wait a minute, he's 5 years behind the times. I've been saying that forever. But what was really cool about that is I would not have known that, and I would not have felt that way if I hadn't been working on my plan. And I would have spent probably millions of dollars on a TV head end, on putting in TV service because I needed to compete with the cable companies. And I know a lot of WISPs have done that, and it hasn't worked out for them. And because back in 2010, I firmly believed that pay subscription TV as we knew it back then was dead, I didn't go down those paths. And we just embraced Netflix. We embraced Hulu, and we marketed that we could support those, but we weren't trying to make any money off of selling a TV service. And that's something that was a very, very directly proportionate to the amount of work I put in my plan. helped me make good business decisions down the road. So it looks like, let's see, we got one more. Topics to connect with employees. Yeah, so this is always kind of hard when you're the CEO and you're like, hey, can you come to my office for a chat? And they're like, wait a minute, what? I'm being called into the principal's office? What did I do wrong? Why am I here? It's like, okay, no. This is just an informal chat. So I like to go to their area. It's their office, their desk. Let's have just a conversation. And that's something else that I had to change. I don't think of myself as any better than any one of my employees, but unfortunately, they take a lot more weight to what I say, right? So if I'm not happy with something they did, or I think there might be a slightly better way, how I position that to them could either crush them or could help them. So I have to be real careful, but I like to ask a lot of questions. Just, what's working? What's not working? What are you struggling with? What are you excited about? How are the kids doing? I'm horrible with names, so I can never remember the kids, but I generally remember, how old they are, what grade are they and how's that working? How's homeschooling working and everything. So it's more of a conversation that shows that you actually care about them as a person. And then sometimes you get some great nuggets, right? I don't have an agenda. I'm not driving to say, well, what can I help you with? Or why are you not performing? It's just kind of a, hey, get to know you, what's going on. That way you can stay connected. And I will say it's kind of hard when everybody's working at home, because now in order for me to have a spontaneous meeting with you, I have to actually call you on a video chat system, as opposed to just run into you in the hall, or I can just walk by your office and be like, hey, you busy? Whereas now I have to like, hey, are you busy? And they're like, oh man, the CEO is asking me if I'm busy. Does he think I'm not working? What's going on? So it's a little bit more difficult for sure. Another question is, how many times do you reread a book? It depends on the book. If it's really, really good book, like a lot of the leadership ones, and there's an Entree Leadership one by Dave Ramsey. I reread those probably once every year and a half, probably on average, maybe every 2 years. As we've grown faster and faster, I tend to reread some of those books because you get a whole new perspective. Like the John Maxwell's 5 Levels of Leadership. It literally takes you through the levels of leadership, and you can be at different levels in different organizations. So in one organization, you might be a level 2, and in another organization or circle of friends, you might be a level 4 or something. So as I've grown in my leadership journey, it's interesting to go back and be like, oh, okay, I think I'm a level 4 now, but this is what I need to do better, as opposed to, trying to remember from 2 years ago when I read a book, what they were talking about. So, and sometimes it's when I've listened to all the books that I want to listen to and my wish list is empty, then I kind of go back and look at other books, and then Audible's real good at saying, because you read this book, you might like these other ones, and that tends to send me down another rabbit hole. So that works well. So, all right. Well, great questions. Thanks so much for being interactive there, and appreciate your time. And please sign in next week, and we'll go over our part 2 of If I Only Knew. Thank you very much. Have a great day.